2 men are behind bars for viciously beating a store clerk. At just after 10 p.m. on Wednesday the 21st of May, authorities responded to a Circle K along Scenic Golf Drive in Miramar Beach, Florida, after a 911 caller told dispatch that a co-worker had just been assaulted in the store's parking lot. When officers arrived, they found the male victim with visible injuries, including a deep laceration above his eye and abrasions on his arms and hands. The employee told police that he encountered 2 young men near his truck when he was leaving work. One of the individuals reportedly asked for a ride, but when he declined, he was violently attacked. The victim said that one assailant struck him in the face with a crushed aluminum can, while the second attacked him from behind, delivering multiple blows to his head. As the employee attempted to flee, the attackers began throwing items at him from the bed of his truck, including a vehicle engine starter estimated to weigh over 10 pounds. During the investigation, authorities canvassed the area for witnesses and secured surveillance footage from nearby properties. Later that night, detectives identified the suspects Adrian Robert Gonzales and Daniel Guy Miller, both 20 years old and residents of North Carolina. At around 1 p.m. the following day, the suspects were located and taken into custody without incident. Both men had been charged with aggravated battery and were transported to the Walton County Jail. They were both released on the morning of Friday the 23rd of May, after they each posted $10,000 cash-only bonds. Nicholas Foley and Kayla Renard have been arrested after the infant child was found living in deplorable conditions. On Monday the 19th of May, police responded to a home at 233 South Shirley Avenue in Hunter Path, South Carolina, after the Department of Social Services reported concerns about an 8-month-old baby living in unsafe and unsanitary conditions. When officers arrived, they entered the premises and found numerous raccoons, rabbits, dogs, cats and chickens inside, and the place was littered with animal feces and trash. A goat carcass was also discovered in the bathtub, which had been decomposing for several days. Police contacted a vet from an animal shelter for assistance due to the overwhelming number of animals. In total, the vet and a team helped safely remove more than 40 animals from the property. Nicholas and Kayla were arrested and charged with unlawful conduct toward a child, ill treatment of animals and other violations of town ordinances. They were booked into the Anderson County Detention Center and have since been released on $10,000 surety bonds. The baby was placed into the care of a relative and is reportedly doing okay. 22-year-old Harry Oxner Jr. is behind bars after he shot at a vehicle following a dispute. On Monday the 24th of May, authorities responded to Joe's Quick Mart at 3400 South Fraser Street in Georgetown, South Carolina on report of a shooting incident. Deputies spoke to a man at the scene who identified Harry as a suspect who fired a single gunshot into the driver's door of his vehicle after an argument over a gasoline spill at the store's gas pumps. No injuries were reported. The following morning, Harry was arrested and charged with attempted murder, and he was booked into the Georgetown County Jail. 34-year-old Zachary Lee is behind bars for fatally shooting his wife during a domestic dispute. At around 2:40 a.m. on Saturday the 24th of May, authorities responded to a residence along Tallahassee Highway, just east of Nemon Road in Tallahassee, Alabama, after Zachary called 911 to report that he just shot his wife after she shot him first. Zachary said he was outside on the back porch of the home, and when dispatchers told him to go inside and render aid to his wife until they arrived, he refused, saying, "I'm not going back in there." When deputies arrived on scene, they found Zachary unresponsive and laying on his back. They also found his wife Bethany Lee inside the home near a bed by the back door, laying face down with a gun in her left hand. She sustained multiple gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. Zachary was taken to a Montgomery hospital with a gunshot wound to his leg. He was treated and discharged a short time later, and then taken into custody. Zachary's charged with murder and remains held at the Elmore County Jail without bond. Authorities said they've been to the home multiple times in the past few years for domestic violence calls, and that Bethany filed for divorce in 2018, but ultimately asked for it to be dismissed. The investigation into the matter continues. 43-year-old Randoly Allen is behind bars for fatally shooting the father of her children. At around 2:30 p.m. on Saturday the 24th of May, authorities responded to a residence at 1258 South Perkins Ferry Road in Moss Bluff, Louisiana on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived, They entered the premises and found 48-year-old Brett Daigle of Canyon City, Colorado, deceased with multiple gunshot wounds. After interviewing several witnesses, detectives determined that Randoly had discharged a firearm at the home during a child custody exchange, striking Brett several times, killing him. Randoly was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, and she remains held at the Calcasieu Parish Jail pending a bond hearing. The investigation into the matter continues. 69-year-old Eddie Thomas is accused of setting a building on fire in an attempt to kill his roommates. At just after 3:15 a.m. on Thursday the 15th of May, authorities responded to a fire at a group home located along Dawn Heights Drive in Lakeland, Florida, and learned 5 residents were inside. They all made it out alive, however 2 were seriously injured. Investigators allege that Eddie started the blaze. Authorities said that at 3:15 a.m. that morning, Eddie asked one of the residents for a ride into town, but the roommate said no. Eddie then asked for jumper cables to give him a jump, but the resident also declined. Eddie was holding a plastic jug of liquid at the time. Shortly after Eddie left the room, the victim said he smelled gasoline followed by a boom. He opened his bedroom door to find flames in the hallway. The victim, who uses a walker, tried to escape but fell, so crawled to the exit and sustained burns to his hands and feet as a result. He was later transported to a hospital for his injuries. Another victim was asleep at the time but heard someone yelling about the fire. He tried to escape through the hallway but had to crawl out of his window instead. A third victim woke up to yelling and ran out of his bedroom. He fell over one of his roommates but survived. The fourth victim went to use the restroom in the middle of the night when he saw Eddie walking around the house but said that was common. The resident said he heard splashing sounds, smelled gasoline, and then heard an igniting sound before someone shouted fire. He said he couldn't see the front door because of the smoke, and he fell while running. When he made it outside the house, he said he noticed a fire going from a tree to the front yard and into the house. A fifth victim underwent emergency surgery and hasn't been interviewed, but is expected to be okay. Authorities said that all the victims said they smelled gasoline, and claimed the hallway was wet and slippery. Investigators located 6 accelerant alert points and 2 pour patterns and claimed that Eddie poured accelerant outside each bedroom to prevent anyone from getting out. 2 of the victims said they saw Eddie backing out of the yard in his red Chevrolet truck and driving away. One of the victims said he was confused as to why Eddie woke him up in the middle of the night to ask him for a ride into town since he already had a car. The landlord of the house told authorities that one of the residents called her saying Eddie had lit the house on fire. Eddie, who had been living there since 2023, was reportedly served an eviction notice due to ongoing disputes and failure to pay rent, requiring him to leave by the 20th of May. Shortly after the fire, Eddie went to a hospital complaining of chest pains. He spent 2 days and they released him. Knowing that police were looking for him, he then checked himself into the mental health ward of the hospital, claiming he wasn't mentally right. On Tuesday the 20th of May, authorities located Eddie and arrested him. He didn't confess to lighting the building on fire, and he requested an attorney. Eddie's charged with first-degree arson and 5 counts of first-degree attempted murder, and he remains held at the Polk County Jail. Eddie has an extensive criminal history beginning in 1975, when he was arrested for burglary and grand theft. In the years following, he had been arrested for probation violations multiple times. In May of 1986, Eddie went to his estranged wife's home and fatally shot her in front of their kids. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 17 years in prison and 5 years probation. In 2007, Eddie was arrested for sexual battery with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The following year, he pleaded no contest to lewd and lascivious contact with a victim between 12 and 16. Eddie was registered as a sex offender and spent time behind bars until 2020. He violated his probation again in 2021. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said this was a deliberate and dangerous act that put multiple lives at risk. Eddie showed a complete disregard for human life yet again when he set this fire, knowing the victims were inside. Thanks to our detectives, we have him in custody and justice will be served. 27-year-old Deangelo Miller is behind bars for fatally shooting his girlfriend, 23-year-old Jyrah Smith. At 5:53 a.m. on Friday the 23rd of May, authorities responded to an apartment complex in the 400 block of East Georgia Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee, and reports of an argument followed by shots fired on the second floor of one of the buildings. When officers arrived, they went upstairs and found Jyrah deceased laying face down in the front of an apartment with a gunshot wound to her face. Jyrah's boyfriend Deangelo was identified as a suspect in the shooting and he was taken into custody. Authorities said that Jyrah went to visit Deangelo, who lived upstairs in the same building, and they'd been dating for about 2 months. The two got into a verbal altercation outside his apartment when he shot her at blank range with a shotgun. It's unclear what the dispute was about. The victim's father, Tamarcus Smith, said his daughter lived in the apartment unit downstairs from where she was shot, and her 3 children aged 1, 3 and 6 years old were home asleep when she was killed. Deangelo is charged with second-degree murder, and he remains held at the Shelby County Jail with bond set at $760,000. Deangelo has a criminal history and has been charged with domestic violence twice before, and was also charged with violating his bond conditions in relation to those charges. The investigation into the matter continues. A former Gateway, Arkansas police chief has escaped from a prison where he was serving decades for rape and murder. 56-year-old Grant Hardin escaped from the North Central Unit in Calico Rock, Arkansas at around 3:40 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of May. Grant had been at the prison since 2017 when he was given a 30-year sentence for first-degree murder. He escaped wearing a Corrections Department type uniform. In February of 2017, a man named James Appleton was sitting in a truck, and while on the phone with his brother-in-law, a car came flying down the road and then stopped. Grant got out of his car and approached James in his vehicle and shot him in the back of the head. A witness reported seeing a truck and a white sedan on the side of the road. He said he heard a boom and saw the sedan drive away. The witness then went to the truck to investigate and found James slumped over the seat. Grant pleaded guilty to murder 8 months later. In February of 2018, Grant's DNA matched a sample from an unsolved 1997 rape of a teacher at Frank Tillery Elementary School. The incident took place on a Sunday morning as the teacher was at the school preparing her lesson plan for the week. She left the classroom to use the restroom and encountered Grant, who was disguised with a knit stocking and sunglasses and carrying a pistol. He raped her in the bathroom and again in the classroom before fleeing the scene. Grant pleaded guilty to the rape after the DNA match and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Grant served as the Gateway's police chief for about 4 months in early 2016. He had been a Eureka Springs police officer in the mid-1990s, resigning when he was told he was going to be fired for lying in a police report. He served as a Benton County constable from 2009 to 2010 and as a corrections officer in Fayetteville between 2013 and 2014. Benton County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Shannon Jenkins said that he's taken every steps to assist the Arkansas Department of Corrections in locating Grant. Grant has strong ties to Benton County and will be on high alert, he said.